Our New Testament reading is found in the book of James. James chapter 1, verses 17 through 27. Every generous act of giving, with every perfect gift, is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. In fulfillment of his own purpose, he gave birth to us by the word of truth, so that we would become a kind of first fruits of his creatures. You must understand this, my beloved. Let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. For your anger does not produce God's righteousness. Therefore, rid yourselves of all sordidness and rank growth of wickedness, and welcome with meekness the implanted word that has the power to save your souls. But be doers of the word, and not merely hearers who deceive themselves. For if any are hearers of the word and not doers, they are like those who look at themselves in the mirror, for they look at themselves and, going away, immediately forget what they look like. But those who look into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and persevere, being not hearers who forget, but doers who act, they will be blessed in their doing. If any think they are religious and do not bridle their tongues, but deceive their hearts, their religion is worthless. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to take care of orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. The word of God for us, the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Because Lisa is here, and because some of us love horses, I've decided to try something a little different. Brothers and sisters, I greet you again as the herd of the Lord. I'm your stable keeper that you are familiar with, and I have been thinking recently about how helpful it is sometimes if we just remember the stable rules of the Liberty Corral. Remember that when you came to the divine horse whisperer, please remember that you came not because you were of a fine lineage, that you could go and trace your roots back through stallions and mares. You came because the divine horse whisperer chose you and invited you to be part of his flock. But we get easily distracted as his herd, so I'd like to remind you of some of these fences, if you will, of the Liberty Corral. First, pay careful attention to the fences and fence posts that God has built for us. They're there for a reason. They're there not to keep us from doing the things we really want to do, but rather to shape our hearts and train us as the herd of God. Those fence posts and fences have been carefully placed. Pay attention to them. Observe them. Let them be a barrier for you, a buffer for you, a boundary for you. Don't forget that they're just not randomly placed, but that God, the divine horse whisperer, has given us those fences for a reason. Secondly, don't go moving the corral fence. You may think that you know what you're doing. You don't. So don't go moving it. Don't extend it out or contract it in any way. Thirdly, stay inside the corral at all times. We know that it looks so luscious and so attractive, but we know what happens when you're Friends, the cows get out of the fence and start wandering down the road. They get themselves in all sorts of trouble. No fence jumping. The fences are there to protect you from that wild part of your nature. So, as the royal herd of God, don't jump the fence. It's there to protect you. If you jump the fence the first time, then maybe there's a little excitement, but by the time you get to the second or third time, you begin to forget who you are and what you've learned. And rule number 5, teach your offspring the rules of the herd. They need to know where the fences are. They need to know what the right attitude is and the herd behavior rules. So, what about the divine horse whisperer? What instructions would he give us individually? First, make every effort to get rid of your old habits. Some of you have been known for biting. Your stable hand or the horse whisperer comes along and you don't like something that is done, so you voice your opposition by biting or kicking. Those are old habits that need to be gotten rid of. You need to intentionally let go of them so that you can gain the new habits. Secondly, learn the words and practices of the horse whisperer, for they'll literally save your life. There are times you're going to want to go one way, and the horse whisperer says, "Stop!" The horse whisperer sees things that you don't see, and knows things that you don't know. Thirdly, pay attention to what the horse whisperer is teaching you, rather than bucking against everything he says. Some of us make it a habit of bucking. It is our way of showing our independence. Sometimes we voice it. We've always been in this pasture. Why should we go to that pasture? The horse whisperer knows what is best for us. All of us buck at some point in our lives about something. So stop bucking. It's not doing you any good, and it certainly isn't helping you become a mature member of the herd. Put the horse whisperer's teachings into practice, rather than simply ignoring them. There are 4 ways that you can tell whether or not you're listening to the divine horse whisperer. Look at the way you have been in the corral this week and see if any of these match up. First, you easily forget what the horse whisperer has taught you. We easily forget what he teaches us. Secondly, sometimes we make a big show of quoting the horse whisperer. We're able to say that the horse whisperer said this, or I read what he said. But then sometimes our behaviors show that we're not really living by what the horse whisperer said. Acting like we're following him, but doing so half-heartedly. I want to come out of the story for just a second. This is the Tokyo Olympics. This is a young woman from Germany. She's in the equestrian event. She's in first place. It's my understanding that you cannot bring your own personal horse, that you have to have a horse that is assigned to you. So here she is in first place, and she starts out on her routine, and the particular horse that she was riding would not do any jumps. None. You can look her up on the internet and you can see tears pouring down her face. She's in first place, and the horse refuses to jump any hurdle. She went from first to 31st, and she couldn't do a thing about it. Now, back into the story. Sometimes we tend to act like we follow the divine horse whisperer, but we're really not willing to take any risks, not really willing to do anything different. We find ourselves doing it half-heartedly. And finally, we use our familiarity with the horse whisperer's teachings, and we teach bad habits to other horses. I don't know about you, but I don't think that chewing on the fence is a particularly good habit. But we horses are herd animals. We're constantly looking around to see what other horses are doing before we make our decision. And finally, regularly jumping the fences that the horse whisperers put up for us. I really enjoy doing that. So, if anyone thinks that they're part of the herd, but don't accept a bridle, particularly a bridle on their tongues, then they're off by themselves, living as if they're not part of the herd. This is a dangerous place to be. It is a horrible place to be. It's kind of like the horse whisperer told us that he leaves the 99 sheep and he goes to find the one sheep that is lost. It is a horrible place to be. And oftentimes, if we are not listening, if we don't put a bridle on our tongue, then we act like we're wild horses, untamed, untrained. What's some behavior that shows that we belong to the horse whisperer? Persevering in doing what he's taught us to do. Now, not many of us in this herd practice this. In case you don't recognize it, this is a cutting horse. And this horse has been trained to round up calves. And so when the calf goes this way, the horse goes this way. When the calf goes this way, the horse goes this way. And this horse is following the calf. And notice where the horse's eyes are, on the calf. And notice what the rider is doing, hanging on. We need to persevere in doing what we've been taught so that we can look like this. It's also behavior that shows that we are part of his herd is if we care for the distressed orphans and the widows. This is a picture of an orphan colt who is being adopted by a mare that has lost her foal. That's a mark of being part of the Divine Whisperer's herd. We take care of the lonely, the distressed, the lost. Now, most of the time when we see a picture like this, we find ourselves saying, that is one stubborn animal, right? But if we belong to the Divine Horse Whisperer, it is a very good thing that we stubbornly refuse to accept any training from anyone else but him. We will not follow any other trainer. We will not follow any other owner. We'll only follow him and only his voice. And if you try and lead us in a different direction, good luck. And we live for his praises and nothing else. We're rather simple creatures. Do you know that? We love the rewards. And oh, doesn't our horse whisperer reward us? We're far more than we deserve and far more than we could ever earn. And he gifts it to us. And because of all that he has done for us, we find ourselves being willing members of his herd. Two quick things to think about as we finish. A horse's lineage doesn't determine the kind of horse they'll be. Some of us come from a long line of being part of the Divine Whisperer's herd. Some of us grew up in herds in which the Divine Whisperer's words were not heard very much. They weren't thought of very much. But oh, the lineage doesn't matter. It's not who you belong to that matters, rather the identity of the trainer. So that leads us to this question. Who's our trainer? I hope that as we've looked at these herd ideas that you have caught on to the idea that Jesus is our divine horse whisperer. He's the one that we live for and live with. He's the one that sustains us. So I would hope that we would look at those commands that God gave in Deuteronomy and in James in a slightly different way. It's not about us, not about us as individuals. We are part of his family. We are his body. So let's pay attention to common sense commands and urgings and encouragements. And let's live out what it means to be part of God's royal stable. Brothers and sisters, as members of God's family, go forth from this place, listening to the voice of our divine horse whisperer, depending on his grace and his love and his peace. Go in peace.
Amen.